All right. So I'm going to talk about the 5 things to know about Connections for the Homeless and the services that we offer, for Evanston residents, and also we do serve, North Suburban Cook County. So the 5 things I will talk about is our food pantry, rental assistance, utility assistance, drop-in services, and housing resources. So for our food pantry, and I know that this is a big issue right now since SNAP was just decreased in the month of March. So we actually have a very robust food pantry at one of our drop-in locations, which is at 2121 Dewey in Evanston. We get our food delivery, so it usually comes from the the Greater Chicago Food Depository. It's every second and fourth Tuesday, and a lot of people come. Again, we get milk, eggs, like fresh produce, and it's a really great service. You can come every day that we're open, so Monday through Friday. Our drop-in hours are 9 to 11, 12 to 2. We're closed Wednesday afternoon, so there's just limited staff there to help you. But again, you can come every day. You can shop for free, get as much food as you need, and that's just a great service that we do offer the community. So for rental assistance, which is just a very in-demand service that we provide, the best way to get connected to rent assistance is through, it's called the Suburban Cook County Call Center. If you do look it up, it's also called like Entry Point. And basically it is a call center that manages all of Suburban Cook County. So it's all the different regions. So we're in the north, it manages the west and the south as well. What you do when you call the call center is they'll do an intake and then they'll refer you to an agency that's proximate to where you live. So usually if you're in Evanston, you will get referred to Connections for the Homeless for the most part. Sometimes Catholic Charities does take a referral, but there are other agencies that do provide this service as well. And then Connections for the Homeless is actually the banker for those regions. So we get this one big grant from the state, and we are the banker for the whole North Suburban Cook County region. So again, if you're working with another agency, you're still getting the same services that we would provide, and the call center is the best way to manage the data and the demand of people calling in, and that's why we tell people to go through the call center first, because that data translates into more funding. So that's why it gets tracked that way. So some people get frustrated because they might not be able to get through the call center, and I understand that there are barriers to getting a referral. So we'd like you to start there first. If you can't get a referral, that's where you would call us directly. And I gave our contact information, so it's extension 134. There's also an email. I check that every day. So the best way to get the fastest response would be to email if you have access to it. Otherwise, you can call, and we will call you back within 3 to 5 business days. Sometimes we text as well, just because we do get people calling in from Chicago, and our funding does not serve Chicago residents. You have to go, if you're in Chicago, you'd have to go through 311. Similar, actually, Catholic Charities also runs that call center, and they would again refer you to a local agency in Chicago. So that's a big, high demand service that we do get. We do have a really long wait list right now. Hopefully it won't be like that our next fiscal year, but there's just a lot of people that need that right now. I wanted to talk about utility assistance as well, because that's a big need for people. So there is a service called LIHEAP that you can get through CETA, and it's usually, and there's different programs, and I'm not from CETA, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but there is one program that we do like to direct people to, and it's the direct vendor payments, and you usually can get it once every year. I want to say within a 12-month period, I'm not quite sure, but it's also seasonal. So it kind of closes in the summer, and it's usually from September, like right around Labor Day is where it opens, and then it ends at the end of May. So the direct vendor payment. So that's the program. It is seasonal. The best way, so unfortunately Connections is not a partner intake site. We just don't have the capacity to do that. There are partner intake sites all throughout Chicago and the north suburbs. You just have to look on their website for that. A lot of times we end up sending people to like North Chicago, because that tends to be the closest location. But that's the best way. They are encouraging people to go through the partner intake sites versus going through like our agency to get you connected through it. Also, you can go through their phone number. You can go through the, and I know there's a high demand for that as well. And we can help with utility assistance as well. Like Connections can help with that. We do require like a shut-off notice or something where you're in imminent danger of shut-off, and that's where we could potentially help and with our own funding, if there's funds available. I also wanted to talk about our drop-in services, because I think we provide a lot, and I mentioned at the beginning that our main focus is housing, but again, we have a lot of other services that we do offer. We have 2 different locations to take note of. So, and this gets a little confusing. So there's Hilda's Place, which is also called Lake Street Church. So we kind of use those interchangeably. Hilda's Place is in the basement of Lake Street Church, which is at Chicago and Lake. So 1458 Chicago Avenue. That location is mostly for individuals who are literally homeless. So they're on the street, they're on the trains, they're in their car, and again, for individuals. So at that location, we offer case management. There's the health services at that location. There's showers, laundry, there's storage space, although I think that's limited. There's a big clothing room. There's a very limited food pantry, because again, it's for people who are literally homeless on the street. So it's just not a lot for them because they're unhoused. So very limited in terms of the food pantry. So that's for Hilda's Place. The other location is our main office, which we target the population that should be going to the main office are families, people with physical disabilities, because Hilda's Place has like a staircase that you have to go down. Also people who live in the 5th Ward, because that's where it's located, and also people who are housed as well. So those who are like literally homeless, again, should not necessarily be going to that location. Again, we offer case management there. There are showers. There's limited clothing, not as big as the one at Hilda's Place. And then, like I mentioned earlier, is our big food pantry that we get our food deliveries. And then I wanted to talk about housing resources, because that is a huge program that there's just a huge demand for. And the whole premise is connecting people to resources to find more affordable, sustainable housing. Now, there are different options or services that our housing resource specialists can connect people to. I don't want to get too much into it, but essentially if this is a service that you are in need of, definitely just call us and we can get you connected and we can screen you. But there is something called the statewide referral network, where if you're income eligible, we can get you connected to that. And it's basically like a database of affordable housing options throughout the state. There are very limited options in Evanston, but again, it is faster than getting connected through, like, say you're on the wait list for a housing choice voucher with HAC. This sometimes is a faster option than waiting for that subsidy. We can connect people to affordable housing wait lists. There's seniors who might be eligible for wait lists as well. We can give you those resources. And then I wanted to talk about, and I did mention, working with local landlords to get their own leases. Like that was something that I kind of want to clarify with people. Like Connections doesn't necessarily have housing. We work with landlords to get leases and to help people with that. But we ourselves don't have housing. I think people that's a misconception in the community. And then the other service is to just look at local listings. So and our whole goal is to teach people how to look for housing and give them those tools so that they can do it themselves. Because it's essentially what we're doing is we're looking at listings, the credit score, and there are different barriers that come into play when looking for housing, and that is very challenging. And there's just very few housing options in general. There's just low housing stock in general. So we do help people give those tools to try to search for housing on their own if they have, income to pay market rate. And if you don't already know, rent in Evanston is really expensive, and it's just going up, and it's getting a lot harder to afford it. So we just work with families to explain, these might be your options. And I did want to talk about HAC. We don't have subsidies. Like Connections does not have Section 8 housing choice voucher, or formerly known as Section 8, but we do not have housing choice vouchers. That's through the Housing Authority. Very Some people are on that wait list for years, for like 20 plus years. Very rarely do they open the wait list. So they opened it up during COVID. I think it was open for a very short period of time. You can get on the wait list, but then it's like a lottery. And then like we have no control over who gets a voucher. But then also what we're finding is once you do have a voucher, it's like that's one part of it, but then there's so many other barriers and struggles to get that voucher placed on a market rate apartment. Like that's just, it's because you have landlords that discriminate against you. You have, if you don't have income, but even though the voucher will cover your rent, they still might discriminate against you. So it's like one part of it. And, we work with participants or clients that have a voucher to try to put it on a new unit. And I kind of went ahead of myself, but just to explain what a voucher is the housing authority pays a percentage of your rent. And then usually if the tenant has income, then you will pay usually 30% of your income towards your rent. And what else did I say? So yeah, Connections does not have subsidies. We have different housing programs, but that is for people who are like literally homeless on the street. I can't even speak to those programs because it's a different part of the process, but it's for people who are on the street, literally homeless, that can get matched to different housing programs. And that's what I mentioned. Okay, I think that was it. Yeah, and then contact information. Again, I manage that email and that phone, that voicemail. Oh, just a quick note: the voicemail box is a voicemail box. There's no landline hooked up to it. So if you do call, please leave a voicemail so we can get back to you. Because if you hang up, we may not call you back. So there's just no one answering that. So that's just important to know. And that's it.
Thank you so much.